In this lesson, we're going to be talking about public key cryptography. Public key cryptography only tells half the story, frankly, when you call it public key cryptography, because public key cryptography uses key pairs. There's one secret or private key, and there's also one public key. The keys are linked mathematically. Now, they have to be linked mathematically because you use one key for encryption and one key for decryption. If I were to send a message to you, I would get your public key and I would encrypt my message to you. You would then use your private key in order to decrypt that message. So there's always two sides to this public key scenario. We've got a public key and a private key. Now I can show you the private key for a certificate. As always, we password protect them. So here's all of the keying material for the private key for this server key that I've generated. 4096 bits of a private key here, and here's all of the keying material. Now I can look at the public key as well. So that's all stored in an X.509 certificate. An X.509 certificate can also be used to digitally sign a message to somebody. And in order to do that, if I were to send you a message that I wanted to sign, I would sign it with my private key. And you could verify that it was mine by using my public key, which you have access to, because it's public. So these are X.509 certificates. X.509 certificates certainly implement public key cryptography, but it's not the only mechanism. You may have heard of PGP, which is short for Pretty Good Privacy. It was developed by a guy by the name of Phil Zimmerman in 1991. PGP also implements public key cryptography, but it implements it in a different way. The way that PGP implements public key cryptography is using a decentralized approach, where X.509 certificates use a certificate authority, and that certificate authority is where information is stored and where people and users are validated and verified. PGP doesn't use any central authority. PGP relies on individual users to validate and verify user identification. This is what PGP calls a web of trust model. Rather than having one central authority that's responsible for doing all of that work, which of course incurs costs because you have to employ people and have facilities and infrastructure for all of that, which makes X.509 certificates cost money, PGP uses this web of trust model, which means I post my public key to a public key repository, and there have traditionally been a few of them around. Once I post my public key, anybody who knows me goes and signs my public key with their key. And in signing my public key with their key, you can know that I'm who I say I am if you know and trust that person. So the idea is that we use people and you get the 6 degrees of separation sort of effect where eventually you know enough people who have signed enough certificates that you can trust the new ones that you run across. So that's how the PGP model works. The web of trust is used to ensure that people are who they say they are. X.509 uses a certificate authority to verify that people are who they say they are. The end result, though, is effectively the same. You have a public key and a private key. Both are required for the whole process between encryption and decryption, as well as digital signing. And that's just an overview of public key cryptography.